Hello everybody and welcome to the 300th Admin Chat. I'm really delighted to be here this evening to share this celebration with you. Back in 2012 we did our first Admin Chat in January, and it was very much a situation where we felt that we wanted to give free training to the industry. We know that a lot of you out there can't afford to take the kind of training that we provide in the format of the magazine, or in the conferences that we do, or the training that we deliver. So we had an absolute commitment to deliver you free training on a weekly basis. Since January 2012, we've now done 300 admin chats, this being the 300th one, and we hope that you've learned plenty from the top trainers of assistants from all over the world that have given up their time to do this for you. So, what have we got planned for you this evening for this very special admin chat? Which, by the way, I'm recording in Spain, which is where I live for half the year at a lovely town called Brazier. They like to celebrate quite a lot, and this evening I've had quite a few mishaps trying to record this, where we've had people cheering and motorbikes going up and down the road. So I think that probably what I'm going to do is to just keep going, and you'll have to excuse me if there are a few interruptions coming in from outside. What we are going to do this evening is to answer all sorts of your questions. So for the last couple of weeks, we've had a situation whereby Matt Want has been collating the questions that you wanted to ask me, and I'm going to try and answer as many of those for you this evening as I possibly can. So if I look down, this is because I'm looking at my list of questions, and we're going to start off by talking about how I started the magazine and what the purpose of it was. Now, we actually started the magazine back in March 2011, but it had been in existence prior to that, and it had gone out mainly in the UK. It was more of a newsletter type publication, and although it had no advertising in it, it was very much dedicated to just training, but at quite a local level. And back in 2003, I had been doing some PR work for one of my clients. Previous to running executive secretary, I had worked in the publishing industry since I was 18 years old, and I had also done PR for various clients. So one of the clients that I had, I was looking to get pieces of PR all over the place, and I went to phone this lady who had this newsletter, a lady by the name of Jo Denby, and Jo was very receptive, and we talked a whole heap about the magazine itself and whether she would put my client into it. And at the end of the conversation, she said to me, "You know what, Lucy, I've run this for many years, and although it's done exactly what I wanted it to do, I am in fact intending to retire. I'm now nearly 70, and I am intending to shut the magazine. So the likelihood is that we won't be publishing your piece, unless, of course, you would like to come and talk to me about it." And me being me, you probably know, if you've met me, I quite like to talk. So I travelled to Devon, which is from where I live in London, about 5 hours away. And I met with Jo for lunch, and we had a really good chat, at the end of which she gave me the magazine. She gifted it to me, but on the basis that I would never put advertising in it, and that I would continue running it for the people who had subscriptions at that point in time. And both of those things I did, until in 2010, I really wasn't terribly well. I burnt out, and I stopped doing the role that I was doing as a publishing director at one of the major UK publishing companies. And at that point, weirdly enough, I decided that in order to get some better work-life balance, I would start the magazine as a proper magazine. It's something I'd wanted to do for a very long time, but I had never had the time or the opportunity to do it. And so because I had several weeks off, I decided to see what I could do with it. And in fact, I stopped working for the publishing company in December and launched in March 2011. And the rest, as they say, is history. So initially, it was very much meant to be something that just brought me in money to keep me going from working at home and not working in such a stressful environment. But very, very quickly it turned into something that was really quite extraordinary. I went in, oh gosh, it must have been about 5 months after I first started the magazine, to Italy, because I was asked by one of the associations there to go and speak. And at that conference, I was blown away by the assistants and by their commitment to the profession. But equally, I could feel their frustration. And in Italy at that point, still only 48% of women worked. But we had one assistant in particular who really stuck in my mind, who was the PA to one of the really top companies, CEOs of one of the top companies in Italy. And she had come to the office the day before and had been asked to clean the windows, and thought that that was okay. And I can remember sitting there thinking, my goodness, this is really bizarre. And certainly not what an assistant who is a professional business person should be doing. And a lot of them talked also about situations where they didn't feel that they had a voice, and where in some cases they were being bullied really quite badly. And certainly most of them felt quite subservient. I don't suspect that that's the case anymore, but certainly at that point it was. Anyhow, I came back to London absolutely buzzing with ideas and a renewed commitment to doing what I had been doing. And at that point, I was invited by the late Susie Baron-Stubley, who, for those of you that don't know her, I suspect in her time was the top trainer in the world. She was absolutely extraordinary, way ahead of her time and absolutely visionary. And she invited me to go on her PA retreat, which she ran maybe 3 or 4 times a year for the top trainers in the world. And each of those retreats only had 12 to 14 people on it, but it was an introduction to really senior management techniques, and looked at the role as something that was a career and as a profession, as opposed to just being support. And I very arrogantly went along to that thinking, well, you know, I've been in business at that point for 24 years, and there's not really going to be a whole heap that I can learn from this. But in fact, I came away just, I think I had 70 plus ideas for things we could write about in the magazine, and certainly with a huge insight as to what the role could be for the people that aspired to be that, and what the frustrations were and how we could help. And I have been travelling around talking to assistants pretty much ever since. I haven't totted up how many countries I've been to in total, but it's certainly, well, last year alone was nearly 40. So I would have thought probably 50, 60 countries in total, including the ones that I revisit quite a lot, and hundreds and hundreds of events. So I have, you know, quite simply met thousands of you and talked to you about your profession and where you see yourselves headed. And I hope that we're doing work that is really supporting you and helping you to turn this into a career. Which, talking of which, one of the other questions that I got asked, and it flows in quite nicely, was I'm forever saying that I think the assistant role is a profession, a career, not just a job. And why do I say that? Actually, again, I can tie that in with another question that I got asked, which was around AI, artificial intelligence, and where I think the future of technology is going. So to start with, what I would say to you is this absolutely is a profession now. It is a career. It's not something that is women's work, which is what it was seen as for quite some period of time. There are 500 million assistants worldwide, and they are exceptional business people. They support their executives to be absolutely the best that they can possibly be. And from my point of view, the assistant sits in a role where they pick up the tasks that maybe their executive isn't so strong at. So it's your businesses that pay you to be an assistant. It's your businesses that pay you to be the best that you can possibly be, to make your executive the best that they can possibly be. And to that end, Bonnie Low-Kramen is very fond of saying that the majority of managers don't get training until they are 42 years old. She'd found that piece of research. And in that case, there are a whole heap of managers out there who have no clue what they're doing at all when it comes to training other members of staff. So I think it's kind of seen by the business population as a whole, although hopefully they will catch up shortly. That assistants are there to assist and not to do, and that maybe they aren't as full on and as fully committed as maybe other members of the team are. And certainly quite a lot of assistants that I speak to talk about the fact that they are not contributing to the bottom line, maybe like other people in the office are. All this is absolute, total and utter nonsense. Your executives usually have skill sets that are around about leadership, and leadership in terms of driving the business forward, coming up with new business strategy, maybe putting new revenue streams into place, that kind of thing, and inspiring people to do what they're meant to be doing. Other leaders, other executives are maybe coming up with new product or new process, looking after multiple people, driving sales teams, that kind of thing. But where the assistant comes into play in the more traditional roles is to look after all the things that need to be put in place to make that happen. So the process that needs to happen behind that. Quite often the communication, when you have an executive who's maybe not quite so good at communicating with the rest of their teams, is putting reports in place, it's building presentations, it's organising travel, it's looking at calendars, and certainly an assistant is every bit as valid a role as the executive they support. And I'm with Jeff Hoffman here. Jeff Hoffman is the guy that owns Priceline. He is worth about $58 billion. And he tells a wonderful story about a friend of his, Carl, who was an eminent heart surgeon. And he says that he went to see Carl one evening and Carl was doing his calendar. And he said to him, "What are you doing?" And Carl said, "Well, I'm doing my calendar." And he said, "Aren't you worth $500 an hour?" And Jeff says, often, if you don't have an assistant, then you are an assistant. Just think about that for a moment. If you don't have an assistant, then you are an assistant. And what he means by that is that if your executive is doing administrative tasks, then to all intents and purposes, the business is paying them to do an administrative role, is paying them their salary to do an administrative role. So if we're talking about what you contribute to the bottom line, just think about it for a second. What you are actually contributing to the bottom line is the number of hours that you save them. Take that figure for a week, because even the worst assistant will probably save 10% of their executive's time. And the best one's 40–50%, I would have thought. So take that number of hours and times it by their salary, and that's the first amount of money you contribute to the bottom line. The second is the things that you physically do, like saving money on flights by looking for the most cost-effective flights, or saving money by, I don't know, putting new processes into place, or by booking venues for a Christmas party or whatever, where you negotiate it down, all that stuff. But also the third way that you really contribute to the bottom line is by freeing up their time so that they can come up with other ideas and work through things that they need to, which make a company money. So you absolutely, totally contribute to the bottom line. You are a valid part of the business process. You are the main collaborators right the way across the business. Other than the person who sits on reception and the people in IT, I can't think of anybody else who probably collaborates right across the business like you guys do. You have a valid business function. I think now that assistants tend to fall into 4 roles. And please don't pay particular attention to the titles I'm going to use, because we have managed to find 163 job titles for this role so far. Excuse me while I just have some water. It is water, honestly, not vodka. So the 4 different types of roles as I see them. The first is the EA, and what I mean by that is the people who are doing the role at the highest level. They understand the business strategy. Their key performance indicators, their KPIs are probably aligned with their executives. And by the way, that's a really great way to set your objectives for the year, to look at what your executives' KPIs are and align yours with them. And quite often you ask me that question, how do I set my objectives for my appraisal? They understand brand strategy. They're probably doing research and project management. and jobs really at the very, very highest level, just with a different skill set to their executive. So you've got their world over here and you've got your world over here, and in the middle the two of you meet, and ideally it should be the equivalent of having one person with all the skills that you need to make that role exceptional. So that's your EA. That's the highest paid role. Some companies are calling it Chief of Staff, some companies are calling it the Administrative Director. And of course, you know, if you guys make up a fifth of the world's working population, as you do, then those of you that are working at the top level, should some of you be on boards, because you have a lot to contribute to the business. That role is probably 24/7. Your computer, your phone will be on 24/7, and you will be paid great money, but maybe you don't want that. Maybe that isn't what makes your heart sing. And I'm a great believer that you really need to be doing things that make your heart sing. I saw a diagram quite recently, which was on Facebook, and on Facebook it was showing the number of years that it is that you are studying in order to get yourself ready for work, and how many years on average at the end of work people have to enjoy their lives. And it is the most massive block of your life where you are working. So if you're not doing something that makes your heart sing, you really need to look at that. So the second type of role are the ones where the assistants have become middle management. And those of you that listen to me regularly will have heard me bang on about this forever. But back in the recession, we found that businesses got rid of the level of middle management and then came to you, the assistant, and said, would you step up and take on those roles for a very, very short period of time? And the recession was 8 years ago now, and the majority of you are still doing those roles because there is nothing more permanent than temporary. So, yes, if what makes your heart sing is doing things like organising events, marketing, finance, HR, you know, assistants are forever coming to me now and saying, you know, I don't know if I'm an assistant anymore because I don't really do a whole heap of administrative work anymore. It's probably only half my role. The rest of the time I'm doing HR, or the rest of the time I'm helping finance, or the rest of the time I'm organising events. Well, that's normal. That's the way that assisting is going these days. And the great news is that that opens all sorts of opportunities to do things that you're really excited about. So I don't think there's any problem with that. And then the third type of assistant are the ones who are looking after other people. And about 56% of you now, I think, are looking after at least 2 more people. And again, that could be done in conjunction with the lot that are doing the EA role, or the lot that are doing the middle management role, dependent on what level you are at. And certainly that ranges from people looking after just a couple of people all the way up to people like Debbie Gross, who was the chief executive assistant at Cisco, who was looking after over 1,000 assistants and training them and organising their development and making sure that function operated properly. Or Anne Hyatt at Google, who is chief of staff there, and again runs most of the programs for the administrators. So that's the third type of role. And then the fourth type of assistant role are the pure admins. And what I would say about that is, there are times in your life where you want to keep your head beneath the parapet and you just want to get on with doing what it is that you feel comfortable with. And doing admin tasks is fabulous. It's probably not so well paid. There's nothing wrong with that and not being particularly ambitious. But I'm forever being asked about artificial intelligence, as I said earlier, and there is a lot in the press at the moment about whether artificial intelligence will take over from the assistant. My thought is, at this level, yes. It used to be that assistants were task-based. It used to be that assistants did as they were told. They were reactive. They didn't have an opinion. They were there just to do the admin work. That isn't the case anymore. And the more AI becomes prevalent, the more I feel that these particular tasks are going to be taken over by machines, probably. So if your role is currently just doing admin, that's absolutely fine, but that is something that I think will change very, very swiftly. And 2018 to 2020 has been marked as the AI age, and when it really comes into play. So if you're wanting to remain working as an assistant, now is the time to get involved with your own personal development and make sure that you're up to speed to learn the kind of skills that you need in order to be a true assistant at the level that we're talking about. Which leads me on to another question. Somebody asked me what I felt it took to be a top-level assistant, and I will come on to characteristics in a minute, but I really think here are a few things that you really should be looking at if you want to be operating at a top level. The first is really understanding how the role has changed and what your position is within the company and conducting yourself accordingly. If you want to be treated like a business person, you need to act like it. And so many assistants still see themselves as being subservient. They find it difficult to find their voice. They find it difficult to say what they think about issues within the business. Well, that absolutely needs to change, and you need to understand properly how the role has changed. You can find any number of articles from both myself and various other leaders in the field all over LinkedIn, and you can read what Adam Fiddler has to say, who I think is particularly good on the subject, or Julia Schmidt, or Bonnie Craman. There are so many of the really top trainers, Joan Burge, who are really getting how all this stuff has changed and are writing about it a huge amount. So go take a look at all that stuff. The second is personal development. I've mentioned that already this evening. I think there is so much stuff out there that is free that there is no excuse anymore not to invest in your personal development, whether that's in terms of money or in terms of time. And because this profession is changing so fast, I think that it's particularly important that you're keeping your skill sets up to date. And I'm not talking just now about technology, because although you absolutely still need technology and you need to be on top of it and you need to be making sure that you're operating in the most efficient and effective way possible, that is not what the role is about anymore. It isn't tea and typing and just putting together things in PowerPoint. These days, you are going to need to do project management, you are going to need to do event management, you are going to need to understand leadership and collaboration, and you are going to need to be in a situation where you get EQ, emotional intelligence. It's one of the key skills that's looked for by CEOs out there, emotional intelligence. So go read about that. And don't just read within your sphere. It's very easy to get tied down with just reading about the assistant role, and actually you're far better off quite often reading things like Harvard Business Review or Inc.com and looking outside of the profession itself to see what's going on in business full stop, so that you're absolutely up to speed. The third thing I would say to you is you need to really understand communication. And I'm not just talking now about how you communicate in terms of speaking. What I'm talking about is your entire demeanour and how you feel about yourself. So this is in terms of not only the words that you're using, although obviously business speak would be preferable in terms of understanding the way that your business likes to talk and likes things to be communicated, but it's also in terms of your own body language and how you're presenting yourself and what that's saying to other people, and also the tone and the pace and your pitch of voice, because both those things, the body language and the tone and pace and pitch, make up a huge part of the picture. It is only 7% of words that are part of communication. So the other two things are really important to get your head around. And there is a fabulous TED Talk, which you can find for free online by Amy Cuddy, which explains all about body language and how powerful it is. That's really worth looking at. Next, I've mentioned it once already, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, when we did our survey 2 years ago with Avery, which said what were the key skills that assistants had that other members of staff in the office didn't have, EQ came up just so far ahead of anything else. You guys had the same IQ as other people in the office, but your EQ was off the charts. So that is a subject that I would read extensively about and really get to know. Next, understanding different personalities. If you ever see me train, you know I talk about this a lot, the different personalities that there are within a business, both in terms of politics and in terms of the kind of people that your executives are and how you please them. And there are some really great psychometric tests and models out there for you to go and have a look at. So maybe go and look at DISC, D-I-S-C, or Insights, or Belbin, and just have a look. Belbin's at belbin.com. Just go and have a look at some of those models and see whether you can spot where your executive sits, and work out where you sit as well. They usually have free quizzes that you can do, well, more in depth than a quiz, but free questionnaires that you can do online, which allow you to get a profile of yourself to say how you work, and to then give you insights as to how you work with people who have different personalities to you. I think it used to be for over a century that you were only managing one person as an assistant, but now it's only 1 in 5 who is managing only one executive. So you're going to find that the majority of you are managing up to 4. And it's so important, therefore, to understand the different personality types of the executives, because if you've got 4 bosses, then, you know, managing each of them differently is how you're going to keep it that you're managing them the same to a certain extent. And don't forget that you're paid by your business to manage them all the same. All right, let's move on. The other thing that I would say to you is understanding the business. It's no good anymore to be in a situation where you hope that you don't have to put your head above the parapet and you don't have to understand the business. You absolutely, definitely need to understand what is happening, what the strategy is, what the business is driving towards, why that's so important. And then finally, I think the other thing that makes an assistant spectacular is when they are driving proactive and efficient partnership. And by that, what I mean is looking at what makes your executive tick, looking at what makes them successful within the business, understanding the kind of behaviours that they think are exceptional, looking at what their reputation is within the business, and then driving the partnership forward so that you are supporting them to the best that you absolutely possibly can. I often say to assistants, you shouldn't be scared of your executive, you should be scared for them. And that part of your job is to look right the way across the business and see how you can most efficiently manage them so that they are where they're meant to be at the right time, so that any work they've got is prioritised, so that you are aware absolutely as to how you can support them from every angle. So that answers that question. Right, let me go back now and have a look and see if I can see another question. All right. I started the magazine with no budget. Somebody wanted to know, how did I do that and why, and how did that work out for me? Well, all right, so when I first started the business, as I said earlier, I had not been terribly well, and I didn't have an awful lot of money. I had just about enough to start the magazine properly and to get the website done. So I knew right from the beginning that I needed to use social media as a marketing tool. And one of the things that I was very excited about as a publisher was the fact that you could build community, because I'm a great believer that if you have a good publication, you should be creating a community, not just something that is coming out once a month on paper, or where people visit your website and see things and can't communicate. I always worry when people say their websites are done, because to me a website is something that's a living, breathing thing, and certainly we have a lot of work going on this year to try and make our website far more interactive with you guys. But if you think about it, a lot of what we do, including this, including AdminChat, is in place so that we build a community, and we have really vibrant communities now right the way across social media. It's over 10,000 Twitter followers, 45,000 on our LinkedIn group. Facebook is 5,000 on the page, 5,000 in the group, and Instagram is just starting to grow. So it's all very exciting. But back in the day, right at the beginning, we had none of that. And I think that we started off by joining every LinkedIn group that we possibly could for assistants. And we asked you, we said we were launching a magazine, and we said it was going to be training. So we asked you who you had seen trained that you thought was exceptional. And you told us, and we then went to those people and we asked them whether they would write for us. And 99% of them said yes, absolutely. So that was exciting. And then we went and we asked you what you wanted training on. And again, you told us the subject matter that you wanted training on that maybe you weren't getting at the moment. And where we didn't have somebody that trained in that subject matter already, we went to Amazon and we found the best-selling books in the world on those subjects. And then we went to their authors and we asked them to write for us. So we were able, by the time we launched, to hand on heart, A, say that we had the best trainers in the world on the subjects writing for us for the admin profession, but B, to really say that we had a commitment to you, that it was your magazine and that you had built it. And very, very quickly, the LinkedIn group grew, and we didn't use it purely for marketing, as a lot of magazines do. We used it as a vehicle to do market research, so to ask you what you wanted. We posted articles on there, and then based on how much response we got, we knew whether we should be writing on certain topics. We got you talking amongst each other. And now the great thing about all of our social media is that it's taken on a life of its own. So now, rather than me posting and you thanking me and it kind of moving on, you're supporting each other, and you really have got to grips with what it is that is needed right the way across the world. So you might find that you have somebody who goes and says, does anybody know a taxi firm in New York? Or somebody who goes and says, do you know of a vegan restaurant in South Africa? Which, if you've ever been to South Africa, you'll know how mad that is. Or, this happened in my office this week, what do you think? Or, here is an absolutely fantastic article that I really wanted to share with you all. And in fact, there have been some wonderful friendships that have been formed right the way across the world by people who have met using our social media, and it's one of the things that I'm really, really proud of. And we have never done any marketing other than me attending events to speak, which I absolutely love doing, because not only does it mean that I'm out there and I'm meeting you, but it means I'm able to talk to you all about what it is you want me to write about, and make sure that I have my finger totally on the pulse when it comes to what's happening in the industry. And as a publisher, that is so, so important. Yeah, so it allows me to go and do that. I have totally lost my train of thought now. I'm going to move on. I'm sure I will come back to it shortly. I suddenly thought of what I wanted my next question to be. Oh, yes, I was talking about marketing, wasn't I? I was saying I'd never done any marketing at all other than speaking. So that was that. The second part of that, the marketing that I've done, is social media. So that's it. We go to events and talk at those and exhibit at some of them. And I speak at lots, and we do social media. So that is all the marketing we've ever had to do. And we're now 7 years into publishing the magazine, and, you know, those of you that know us know how successful that has been. So it's a really great case study for social media and its strengths. And in fact, outside of the PA industry, other than going and speaking to HR and CEO people about how they can use their assistants properly, it's pretty much the only other piece of presentation work that I do is to go and explain to companies how you can build a business just using social media. So that's very exciting. All right, so the next thing that I wanted to do was to talk to you about World Summit, because there were a couple of questions around that and how that's going to work. And for those of you that don't know what World Summit is not a conference. It's not something that you attend where you listen to people speaking. World Summit is a working event, and it takes place every 3 years. So it's taken place since 1991. I am an ambassador for it. I have absolutely nothing to do with its management or its organisation or any of that stuff. I just spread the word about it because I'm one of the few people in the world who's in the position to do that. But I work very closely with F. Lloyd, who is the chairman of it currently, to make sure that it gets out to the marketplace. So every 3 years, the heads of the top associations, well, the heads of all the associations from all over the world, get together somewhere different to talk about the state of the admin profession and what the most important things are moving forward, and how they as associations together can drive the profession forward. The last one was in Papua New Guinea, and I know some of you have said to me, why was it Papua New Guinea? Well, the reason was because, although it's a third world country, they have an association which has over 1,000 members, and they bid for it. And very much like the Olympics, every 3 years, you get bids in for 6 years' time. So we always know 2 ahead where we're going. So 2018 is going to be in Frankfurt in Germany. It's going to be hosted by IMA, International Management Assistance. And so far we have people coming in from, I believe, over 20 different countries, from all different continents, to take part and to discuss where the profession is headed. After this one, it's going in 2021 to New Zealand, where it will be hosted by the AAPNZ. I think this particular one in Frankfurt is going to be really important, and there's a reason for that. I think it's a kind of perfect storm at this point. Previously, we haven't had the associations talking to each other like they are now. I think we are understanding as a profession and all the professional bodies that there needs to be a shift now in the way that the profession is recognised and the way that businesses pay you all, and the way that the businesses feel about their administrative staff, so that they're using you effectively. Because I truly believe that if businesses used you properly, it would drop directly to the bottom line in most cases. So right now we have these 162 job titles, which is obviously way too much. There is no clear career progression for most of you, and that really needs to change. So the associations are absolutely committed to getting to the bottom of that and to working out what the career progression should be, and to working out what qualifications and certifications there are out there right now, and how we align those so that you are all able to sit within a very clear career progression, and everybody is able to see visibly right the way across the world what stage you're at within your career. So you need to watch this space for more information on that. I suspect that there will be a lot of conversations around that in Frankfurt this year. It may be that we don't get to the bottom of it, but certainly we've had 3 years of research being done into international qualifications and certifications and into job roles, amongst all sorts of other things. There's a whole piece on digitalisation and how that's going to affect us. But you will see, because we are posting on our social media, and right the way across the world, the associations are spreading the word too. There are going to be follow-ups after, so you can see what happened there. But most importantly right now is that we have sent out questionnaires, varying questionnaires on various topics where we really, really need your feedback. This is an opportunity for you to find your voice and to really talk about how you see the progression of this profession. And secondly, we're still looking for delegates from varying parts in the world. Each country can send 3 delegates. Those delegates represent your country and listen to what has to be said, and can contribute and put forward your country's point of view. You don't have to be the head of an association in order to attend. If your country doesn't have an association, you're very welcome to ask whether you can come, fill out the form and see. The committee will make the decision on that. It's nothing to do with me. So several of you have written to me going, how do I go? And I put you in touch with F. Lloyd. But there is a Facebook group for World Administrators Summit, and there is also a website. So if you search for World Administrators Summit on Facebook or on the web, you will find all the information about it, and we would absolutely love to have you there. Particularly, we're looking for people from Asia and from the Middle East, because we haven't got so many people from those parts of the world. But obviously, wherever you come from, we would dearly love to have you there. And if your country isn't already represented, it would be fabulous to have you with us. Right, let's have a look. Let's see what else they have got to see. And also, I should probably have a look and see how we're doing for time, because if you know me, you know I can probably talk for England, and do. Right, let's have a look and see where we are with these questions then. What's the next one? See, I got so carried away. Okay. So recent research among members of IMA shows that 48% of the assistants that they spoke to experienced business integrity issues with co-workers, but the majority of them didn't discuss this with managers or members of the board. Is this a surprise for me? Why not? Do I have any advice for assistants on how to deal with these kind of issues, especially bullying? Okay, most of you will know that earlier in the year we early last year we did a survey which was on bullying, which was in conjunction with the EPAA. In fact, it was their survey originally, and then we worked with them to take it out over the rest of the world. And the figures on that were absolutely shocking. It was something like 7% of people had physically had things thrown at them. There were a huge number of people who felt suicidal because they had been bullied. But the thing that struck me more than anything else about that survey was that the majority of people didn't ever report it. And the reason they didn't ever report it was because they were being bullied by an immediate superior. So that tells me that we have a huge issue. And I'm a great believer that bullying is going to, in the end, be one of those things about like racism or sexism or homophobia or whatever, where we turn around later on and say, well, of course that's wrong, but its time needs to come where there is a spotlight shone on it. It's just one of those things that's insidious, and it exists within businesses, and nobody seems to be doing a whole heap about it, mainly because it's a really difficult subject to tackle. And I'm very proud of the fact that we did work on that and really shone a spotlight on it for the administrative profession. So again, if you are interested in reading more about that and finding out why bullying exists in businesses and what your fellow assistants have to say about it, and also Carol Spears, who is wonderful, who is an international expert on stress, has written a whole heap of stuff in that about how you do deal with bullying and the best way to protect yourself and to take it to senior management. But I think it's a great document. You can find it on our website, which is the executivesecretary.com website. Just search for bullying and it'll come up there. There are another couple of supplements we've done this year that I'm particularly proud of as well. In particular, the one that we did around Mental Health Day. And Kathleen Drum, who is our editor, who's been our editor for the last year, has been exceptional in this regard. She's really worked hard to do put together things that are slightly different to the norm. And that was a collection of articles on how you deal with people with mental health problems within your office, or what you do if you're experiencing overwhelm or mental health problems yourself. So that's really worth taking a look at. And the other one is a series of articles by F. Lloyd, who is herself a survivor of breast cancer, that we put together that was on how you tackle that. F wrote for us every issue for the best part of a year and a half when she was going through treatment for breast cancer, and all the articles that she produced are in that supplement as well. So I would love it if you made use of that and went and had a look. Where are we going with this now? Okay, so the final question really is around what happens next and where we're going from here. And I'm really excited about this. I think we have done extraordinary things in the last 7 years that I'm really proud of, and I have you guys to thank for that, really. You have worked with us every step of the way and helped us to spread the word, and really got on board with pushing this profession forward and campaigning to give yourselves the recognition that you deserve. And each and every one of you within your companies are able to work so that the people in your companies do understand how the role has changed. And particularly with World Summit coming up, I think it would be amazing if as many of you as possible went, and also maybe if you have a company newsletter or an intranet or something like that, to do an article on the role of the assistant and what it actually means and how it's changed and why, or go to the local paper. You know, get them to write something on World Summit and what you're doing at your level and how you're getting involved, and maybe get them to spread the word about the questionnaires that we're putting out there. Especially if you decide that you want to be a delegate, maybe we could get some local press or some local radio or whatever it happens to be to follow your progress and to talk about that. So this year is very much around World Summit. We're going to be organising later on in the year a couple of things. The first is a roundtable which will take place at Summit, where we're going to invite some of the key leaders in the industry to sit around the table and to talk about digitalisation and how we feel that is going to affect the profession moving forward. And we will be recording that and providing an executive summary from it. But I think it is some of the top minds in this industry giving their views on the way that's going to work. There's another piece of work that we're looking at doing halfway through the year, whereby we are going to be doing an independent survey out to our entire database, which is over 100,000 assistants now, asking about associations and why they are joining associations or not joining associations, and what learnings we can get from that. Because the one thing that I do know from my work with all the associations across the world, and there are over 182 of them now, is the thing that they're finding most difficult is recruiting younger generation assistants. And we're not quite sure what it is that is putting them off doing that, but we definitely want to find out, because the world of work and the world of the assistants is at a point where the baby boomers are going to be retiring very soon. And the majority of members right now of associations are baby boomers. So what we want to do is to get out there and to talk to the younger generation and find how we can get them involved so that they are as passionate about this profession and driving it forward as maybe the older members that have been the stalwart of these associations right the way across the world. What else are we doing this year? Live this year is going into London and to Johannesburg in September, and to Silicon Valley in November, and in July we're in Sydney for the very first time, which I'm very excited about. We have some really, really wonderful speakers, and you will be seeing those as they come out. We're also doing a mini live later on this year, so watch out for that. It's kind of a training tour which will be featuring only 4 trainers, but it's a way maybe of getting to see some of the top trainers in the world at a more local level when we take that on tour. So we'll be announcing that shortly. We've got a SEPA this year, which has changed today to being called ACEA. And the reason it is ACEA as opposed to ACEPA is because in the States, PA is not so much a recognised term. So we decided that we wanted to make it the same world over. But ACEA will be available, which is our training course, our 5-day international recognised qualification. That will be available pretty much all over the world, and I'm sure you'll see lots of emails about that. We have a couple more books coming out this year, all sorts of exciting things. But in the very short term, we're looking forward to being at Office next week in London. So if any of you want to come and find us at our stand, we would be delighted to see you. And we are in London at the beginning of March with Live, which the lineup's just incredible. Go take a look at executivesecretarylive.com and see what you can see there. And of course, I'm travelling the world as well this year, as always. At the moment, I have 21 dates. I'm trying to keep the amount of speaking down slightly this year, just because my poor husband, bless him, has barely seen me in 3 years, and this year is time to regroup a little bit, I think, and to do more work from home. So yes, 21 speaking engagements right the way across the world, plus the lives, plus the mini lives. So still plenty of travelling, but on the whole, I am going to be here in Spain and in London with my husband and with my adult children, which I hope you'll allow me and feel happy about for me. But maybe next year I'll be back traveling quite as madly as I have been. So I think that's it probably. I think that's it for this evening anyway. I'm looking forward to seeing plenty of you all around the world as I do my travels, and to speaking to you on the phone and on Skype and on social media, as I always do. That was our 300th admin chat. I hope you really enjoy it. I would be remiss if before I go I didn't thank my team. The last 7 years have been an absolute blast. They are extraordinary. They support you like, I do. I've never known a team like it, and they work so hard, and I couldn't do what I do without them. I know that I am the face of the business, but on the other hand, even just with this admin chat today, Matt Want has worked absolutely tirelessly to make sure that the questions came in properly and it was all put together. And as every amazing assistant does, I turned up here this evening and everything was ready to go. So thank you to Matthew, to Rachel, to Kathleen, to Jenny, Christian, Juliet, all my team, Jam, Matthew Wignall, who are just working so hard year round to make sure that we continue to deliver for you what you need. Matt Want is putting together admin chats for the rest of the year currently. We're almost full, but if you have a subject that you would really, really like to hear about, please do contact him. He's at mwant@executivesecretary.com. That's mwant@executivesecretary.com, and let him know what subjects you would like to see. And finally, all I would like to say to you is, if you've enjoyed this evening's admin chat, but you aren't currently following us on all our social media, please look for us. We're Executive Secretary Magazine. Those resources are absolutely amazing. And if you would like to go to our Facebook group and put a picture of you there, sitting at your computer watching this evening, then we would be absolutely delighted to have a picture of you doing that. And I'm going to pull somebody out of a hat and they will receive a prize. I suspect it's likely to be a subscription to the magazine, an annual subscription to the magazine, which is worth £150 or $262 a year. So 288 pages of training. We would love to see you there, posting your picture, and all it remains for me to do is to say good evening to you from Spain. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to the 301st admin chat next week. Thanks everybody. Good night.